The Great Hall of Solara Prime was older than human civilization itself. Its walls were made of living crystal that sang softly when light touched them. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of species filled the chamber, their bodies glowing, floating, crawling, and standing in every shape the universe had ever created. At the center stood 12 thrones carved from starlight, where the eldest species of the galaxy sat in judgment over all others. Commander Hannah walked toward the center of the chamber. Her boots echoed against the crystal floor. She was alone. No guards, no assistants. Just one human woman standing before the most powerful beings in existence. She had practiced her speech 100 times. She had memorized every word, every pause, every gesture. Earth's outer colonies were dying. Pirates from the Valari Dominion raided them without mercy. Children were being sold into slavery. Families were being torn apart. All she needed was help. Just a small fleet to patrol the borders. Just enough to make the pirates think twice. Elder Voss looked down at her from his throne of light. He was a Lumari, a being made of pure energy that had existed for over 50,000 years. His form shifted like a flame in wind, beautiful and terrible at the same time. When he spoke, his voice filled the entire chamber without effort. "The human speaks," he said. There was amusement in his tone. How entertaining. Soft laughter rippled through the chamber. Hannah felt her face grow hot, but she kept her expression calm. She had expected this. Humans had been part of the galactic community for 80 years, but they were still considered the lowest of the low. Tier 7. Primitive. Barely worth noticing. "Elder Voss," Hannah began, her voice steady. "I come before this council to request military assistance for Earth's outer colonies." "The Valari Dominion has? We know what the Valari have done," interrupted Warden Keth. He was a massive creature covered in armored plates. The supreme commander of the galactic peacekeepers. His 4 eyes studied Hannah like she was an insect. Border disputes happen. Species rise and fall. This is the way of things. With respect, Warden, these are not border disputes. These are attacks on civilian populations. 3 colonies have been destroyed in the past year alone. Thousands of humans have died. Thousands. Ambassador Rina Vivellari leaned forward in her seat. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes like black pools. "We lose thousands in a single afternoon of entertainment. Your species breeds like insects. Surely you can spare a few." More laughter. Louder this time. Hannah's hands trembled at her sides, but she did not look away. "I am asking for protection under galactic law. Article 7 states that all member species are entitled to—" "Article 7 applies to civilized species," Elder Voss said. His light flickered with impatience. "You humans have been in space for less than 300 years. You still fight among yourselves. You still destroy your own planet. You still measure your lives in decades rather than centuries." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You are not civilized. You are tolerated." The chamber fell silent. Every eye, every sensor, every consciousness in the room focused on Hannah. She stood there, small and alone, surrounded by beings who could crush her world without effort. Warden Keth laughed. It was a harsh sound, like stones grinding together. "I have seen your fleet, human. Fusion engines, chemical weapons, metal hulls." He shook his massive head. "You are children playing with toys. The Valari do not fear you. No one fears you. Perhaps, if you survive another 1,000 years, you might earn the right to speak in this chamber. Until then, know your place." Hannah wanted to scream. She wanted to tell them about the children crying for their parents. She wanted to show them the videos of burning colonies, of families running through smoke and fire. But she knew it would change nothing. To them, humans were nothing. "This council has spoken," Elder Voss declared. "The human request is denied. Next matter." Hannah turned and walked out of the chamber. She did not run. She did not cry. She kept her back straight and her head high until she reached her small transport ship. Only then, alone in the darkness of space, did she allow herself to feel the weight of her failure, the journey back to Earth, took 3 days. 3 days of silence. 3 days of thinking about all the people she had failed. When her ship finally entered Earth's atmosphere, she did not go home. She flew instead to a small island in the Pacific Ocean, where a secret facility waited beneath the waves. Admiral Taiho was waiting for her in the underwater hangar. He was an old man with gray hair and kind eyes, but there was steel in his spine that had never bent. He had fought in 3 wars and lost 2 sons to space. He understood sacrifice better than anyone alive. They refused, Hannah said. It was not a question. I watched the broadcast. Taiho placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You did well. You showed them exactly what they expected to see. Hannah looked up at him, confused.
What do you mean?
Taiho smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had been planning something for a very long time. Come with me. There is something you need to see. He led her through corridors of steel and glass, deeper and deeper into the facility. Security doors opened at his touch. Armed guards saluted as they passed. Finally, they reached a massive door marked with a single word, Black Star. The door opened. Hannah gasped. Before her stretched a hangar, so vast she could not see its end. And filling that hangar were ships, dozens of them, hundreds. But they were not like any ships she had ever seen. They did not reflect light. They absorbed it. Looking at them hurt her eyes, like staring into a hole in reality itself. For 60 years, we have been building, Taiho said quietly. For 60 years, we have let them laugh at us. Let them mock us. Let them believe we were nothing. Hannah could not speak. She could only stare at the impossible fleet before her. They called us primitive, Taiho said, his voice hard as iron. Let them keep believing that. When the time comes, they will learn the truth. He turned to face her, and in his eyes, she saw something that had been missing from the council chamber. Hope. They think they know what humanity is capable of, he said. They have no idea. 30 years ago, a young scientist named Yuna sat alone in a small laboratory on a forgotten space station. She was studying gravitational waves, trying to understand why certain areas of space behaved strangely. Her funding was almost gone. Her colleagues had given up and returned to Earth. Everyone told her she was wasting her time. One night, while running her 1000th experiment, something impossible happened. Her instruments detected a new form of energy. It was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. It passed through walls, through planets, through stars. It had no color, no heat, no sound. But it was real. YUNA had discovered dark matter. Every species in the galaxy knew about dark matter. It made up 27% of the universe. But no one had ever touched it. No one had ever controlled it. The ancient species believed it was dangerous, a force that should never be disturbed. They had tried to study it millions of years ago and failed. So they left it alone and forgot about it. But Yuna did not forget. She spent the next 5 years learning its secrets. She discovered that dark matter was not dangerous at all. It was simply different. It existed in a layer of reality that normal matter could not reach. And with the right technology, humanity could reach it too. She brought her findings to the Earth's government. At first, they did not believe her. Then she showed them what dark matter could do. She made a small metal cube disappear completely. Not destroyed. Not hidden. Simply removed from normal space. The cube still existed, but it existed somewhere else, in a place where nothing could touch it. The government understood immediately. This was not just a scientific discovery. This was a weapon. The Black Star project began in secret. Shipyards were built in the Kuiper Belt, far from the eyes of alien sensors. Thousands of engineers, scientists, and soldiers were recruited. They were told nothing about their families. They were told nothing about their futures. They knew only one thing. They were building humanity's salvation. Admiral Taiho was placed in command. He had lost his sons to alien indifference. Watching them die on a colony world while the council debated whether humans deserved protection, he carried that pain with him every day. It made him patient. It made him careful. It made him determined. Lieutenant Jinho was one of the first pilots recruited. He was young then, barely 20 years old, with quick hands and quicker reflexes. They trained him to fly ships that did not exist yet, using simulators based on Eunice theories. When the first dark matter fighter was completed, he was chosen to test it. He still remembered that first flight. The ship did not feel like a ship. It felt like becoming a ghost. When he activated the dark matter drive, the universe around him changed. Stars looked different. Space felt different. He was still in the same location, but he was also somewhere else entirely. "How do you feel?" Yuna asked through the radio. Jinho struggled to find words. "Like I am everywhere and nowhere," he finally said. "Like I could reach out and touch the edge of reality." The weapons came next. Normal weapons used energy to destroy matter. Dark matter weapons did something far more terrifying. They removed the bonds that held atoms together. They did not burn or explode or tear. They simply erased. One moment something existed. The next moment, it did not. No light, no sound. No debris, just empty space where solid matter had been. Jinho tested the weapons on asteroids. He watched mountains of rock vanish in complete silence. He felt no heat, heard no explosion. The asteroids simply stopped being real. It was the most frightening thing he had ever seen. And he was the one pulling the trigger. Years passed. The fleet grew. 12 capital ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. 60 destroyers, fast and deadly. 200 support craft for supplies and repairs. All of them wrapped in dark matter holes that made them invisible to every sensor known to galactic science, Captain. Minji joined the project in its 15th year. She was a tactical genius, famous for winning war games against opponents with 10 times her resources. Taiho made her his second-in-command, placing her aboard the flagship Black Star. She studied the alien fleets, learned their strategies, found their weaknesses. She created battle plans for every possible scenario. "The aliens rely on energy shields," she reported to Taiho. "Their weapons are plasma-based. Their sensors detect heat, radiation, and electromagnetic signals." She smiled coldly. "Our ships produce none of those things. To them, we will be invisible. And if they manage to hit us?" Taiho asked. "Plasma cannot touch dark matter? Their weapons will pass through our holes like light through glass. They could fire at us for 1,000 years and never scratch our paint." The fleet was nearly complete when word came from Earth. The Valari had attacked again. 3 more colonies destroyed, 20,000 humans dead. And the Council had done nothing. As always, Taiho gathered his commanders in the war room of the Black Star. Yuna was there, her hair now gray, but her mind still sharp. Ginho stood beside her, no longer young, but still the best pilot in the fleet. Minji displayed tactical maps on the main screen, showing the positions of Valari forces. "The Council will never help us," Taiho said. "They see us as insects. They always have. They always will." He looked at each of them in turn. "But we are not insects. We are humans. And we have spent 60 years building something they cannot imagine." He pressed a button. The walls of the war room became transparent, revealing the hangar beyond. Ships stretched into the darkness as far as the eye could see, their hulls drinking in light like holes in space. "It is time," Taiho said. "Send the order to all ships." The Black Fleet rises. Across the Kuiper Belt, dark matter engines activated. There was no fire, no roar, no flash of light. The ships simply began to move, sliding through space like shadows through darkness. One by one, they left the hidden shipyards and gathered in formation. Minji watched them come together on her tactical display. Hundreds of ships, each one carrying weapons that could erase stars. She had spent her whole life preparing for this moment. Now that it was here, she felt no fear, only certainty. "Course plotted for the Valari border," she reported. "Fleet is ready for dark matter fold." Taiho stood at the center of his bridge, surrounded by his crew. Good men and women who had given everything for this mission. He thought of his sons. He thought of the colonies that had burned. He thought of Hannah, standing alone before the Council, asking for help that would never come. "Execute," he ordered. The stars twisted, space bent, and the black fleet vanished from the solar system, leaving nothing behind but empty darkness. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. The colony of New Busan was burning. 50 Valari warships hung in orbit above the small planet, their weapons raining fire on the cities below. Plasma beams cut through buildings like hot knives through paper. Families ran through the streets, screaming, searching for shelter that did not exist. The colony's defense platforms had been destroyed in the first minutes of the attack. Now there was nothing left but death. Governor Yoonji stood in the emergency bunker beneath the capital city. Around her, officers shouted into radios that no longer worked. Children cried in their mothers' arms. Old men stared at the ceiling, waiting for the moment when Valari soldiers would come crashing through. How long? Yoonji asked quietly. Her military advisor checked his broken screens. Maybe an hour. Maybe less. Their landing ships are already entering atmosphere. Yoonji closed her eyes. She had 300,000 people under her care. Men, women, children, farmers, teachers, doctors, regular people who had come to this distant world looking for a better life. In an hour, they would all be dead or enslaved. Send one more message to Earth, she ordered. Tell them what happened here. Tell them we died free. High above the planet, the Valari Admiral Kresh watched his fleet work with satisfaction. His forearms were crossed over his chest, his pale blue skin glowing softly in the light of his command bridge. This was his 23rd raid on human colonies. The small creatures never put up much of a fight. Their ships were slow, their weapons weak. It was almost boring. Admiral, one of his officers, called out, "We are detecting something strange." Kresh turned lazily. "What is it?" "I am not sure. Our sensors show empty space, but our gravity detectors are registering massive objects approaching." "How massive?" The officer's face went pale. "Warship-sized, Admiral? At least a dozen of them." Kresh frowned. That was impossible. No human fleet could reach this sector so quickly, and no human ships could hide from Valari sensors. He walked to the main display and studied the readings himself. The officer was right. Something was out there. Something big. Open communications, he ordered. Demand identification. Channel open, Admiral. Kresh spoke loudly, his voice carrying the arrogance of 100 victories. Unknown vessels. This is Admiral Kresh of the Valari Dominion. You are entering a restricted combat zone. Identify yourselves immediately or be destroyed. Silence. I repeat, Kresh said, his voice harder now. Identify yourselves, or the words died in his throat. Ships appeared in front of him, not flying toward him, not dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They simply appeared, as if reality itself had opened a door and let them through, and they were unlike anything he had ever seen. They were black. Not painted black, not covered in dark metal. They were black like empty space, like holes in the universe. Looking at them made his eyes hurt. His mind could not process what it was seeing. What are those? He whispered. His officer was shaking. I do not know, Admiral. Our sensors cannot identify them. They show nothing. No heat, no radiation, no electromagnetic signature. According to our instruments, those ships do not exist. But they did exist, and they were everywhere. The human fleet had appeared in the middle of his formation. Their black ships scattered among his cruisers like shadows among flames. On the bridge of the Black Star, Admiral Taiho stood calmly at his command station. Around him, his crew worked their controls with silent efficiency. Captain Mingi studied her tactical display, tracking every Valari ship. They are powering weapons, she reported. All 50 ships preparing to fire. Taiho nodded. Lieutenant Jinho, are our weapons ready? Jinho's fingers hovered over his controls. Ready, Admiral? Fire. What happened next would be remembered for 1,000 years. Dark matter beams lanced out from the human ships. They made no sound. They produced no light. They were invisible to every sensor in the Valari fleet. One moment, 8 Valari cruisers were there. The next moment, they were gone. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Gone. Empty space remained where kilometer-long warships had been seconds before. Admiral Kresh screamed. He did not mean to scream. The sound tore itself from his throat without his permission. He had seen ships die before. He had watched them burn, watched them break apart, watched them explode in flowers of fire and metal, but he had never seen anything like this. This was not destruction. This was erasure. Return fire, he shouted. All ships, return fire now. The Valari fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma beams, torpedo spreads, particle cannons, a wall of fire and death that would have turned any normal fleet into dust. The weapons struck the human ships directly and passed through them. The beams did not bounce off shields. They did not impact hulls. They simply passed through as if the black ships were made of smoke and shadow. The human fleet did not even slow down. Impossible, Kresh breathed. That is impossible. Another wave of dark matter beams. 12 more Valari ships vanished. Then 15 more. The fleet was dying, and there was nothing Kresh could do to stop it. Admiral, his officer screamed. What do we do? Kresh made the only decision he could. Retreat. All ships, emergency retreat. Jump to any coordinates. Just get us out of the Black Star appeared directly in front of his command ship. It was vast, larger than anything the Valari had ever built. And on its bridge, Kresh could see human figures staring at him through the darkness. You wanted us to identify ourselves, Admiral? Taiho said over the open channel. His voice was calm, almost gentle. We are the Black Fleet of Earth, and we are here to collect a debt. Kresh's ship vanished. The Admiral did not even have time to scream. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, all 50 Valari warships were gone. Not one piece of debris remained. Not one escape pod. Just empty space and silence. In the bunker below New Busan, Governor Yunji watched her working screens in disbelief. The Valari fleet had disappeared from orbit. In its place hung a formation of dark ships, their hulls darker than the space around them. A message came through on the emergency channel. A human voice. A voice she never thought she would hear. New Busan Colony. This is Admiral Taiho of the Earth Defense Fleet. The enemy has been eliminated. You are safe. Yunji began to cry. Around her, people fell to their knees. Children stopped screaming. For a long moment, no one could speak. 300,000 humans had been seconds from death. And then shadows came from the stars to save them. Far away, at the Council Diplomatic Station, Ambassador Rin of the Valari watched the recordings with growing horror. Her hands trembled. Her breath came in short gasps. When the last Valari ship vanished from the screen, she turned to her communication officer. Send an emergency message to the Council, she ordered, her voice barely a whisper. Tell them. Tell them the humans have become death itself. Tell them nothing can stop them. The message traveled across the galaxy at the speed of light, and when it arrived at Solara Prime, the ancient beings who ruled the stars fell silent for the first time in 10,000 years. The council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from every species in the galaxy filled the crystal hall, their voices creating a noise like thunder. Fear hung in the air like smoke. For the first time in 10,000 years, the great powers of the universe did not know what to do. Elder Voss sat on his throne of light, his form flickering with agitation. Around him, the other 11 elders whispered among themselves. They had seen the recordings from the Valari border. They had watched 50 warships disappear without a trace. They had heard Ambassador Rin's desperate message. The humans were coming. Warden Keth stood before his throne, his 4 eyes scanning the chamber. He had brought his personal fleet of 300 warships to Solara Prime, the largest gathering of military power the Council had ever assembled. Plasma cannons, particle beams, gravity weapons, antimatter torpedoes. Every form of destruction known to galactic science floated in orbit above them. Let them come, Keth growled. They destroyed 50 Valari ships. They will not destroy 300 of mine. You did not see the recordings, Ambassador Rin said. Her voice was hollow. Our weapons passed through them. Nothing touched them. Nothing hurt them. They are not ships. They are ghosts. There are no ghosts, Keth snapped. There is only technology we do not understand yet. And technology can be beaten. Elder Voss raised a hand, silencing the chamber. His ancient voice filled the hall. The humans have requested an audience. We will hear them. Then we will decide what must be done. The great doors of the chamber opened. Admiral Taiho walked in first. He wore a simple black uniform, with no medals, no decorations. Behind him came Captain Mingi and Dr. Yuna, 3 humans. 3 small, fragile creatures standing before the rulers of a galaxy. The chamber fell silent. Every eye watched them. Every sensor tracked them. 300 warships in orbit locked their weapons on the Black Star, which hung alone in space like a dark wound against the stars. Taiho stopped in the center of the chamber. He looked up at Elder Voss without fear. When he spoke, his voice was calm and clear. 80 years ago, humanity was discovered by your explorers. We were classified as a Tier 7 civilization, primitive, insignificant, not worth protecting. He paused, letting his words hang in the air. For 80 years, we accepted that judgment. We asked for help and you laughed at us. We asked for protection and you told us to know our place. We watched our colonies burn while you did nothing. You were listing complaints, Elder Voss said coldly. The Council does not respond to complaints from lesser species. I am not listing complaints, Taiho replied. I am explaining why we stopped asking for help, took a step forward. The guards around the chamber tensed, but Taiho did not notice them. You thought we were primitive because our ships were slow? You thought we were weak because our lives were short? You thought we were no threat because we fought among ourselves? His voice hardened. You were wrong. Enough of this, Warden Keth interrupted. He stepped toward Taiho, his massive body casting a shadow over the human. You destroyed 50 Volari ships with some new weapon. Impressive. But you are 1 ship against 300. You are 1 species against 12. Surrender your technology now, and perhaps we will let your planet survive. Taiho did not flinch. No. Keth's eyes narrowed. Then you choose extinction. He raised his arm and spoke into his communicator. All ships, target the human vessel. Fire on my command. I would not do that, Dr. Yuna said quietly. Keth laughed. And why not? Because your weapons are already disabled? A ripple of confusion passed through the chamber. Keth checked his communicator. His officers were reporting something impossible. Weapon systems offline? Targeting computers scrambled. Navigation arrays frozen. 300 warships, the most powerful fleet ever assembled, had become 300 floating coffins. What did you do? Keth roared. Dark matter is everywhere, Yuna explained. Her voice was calm, like a teacher explaining something to a child. It passes through normal matter without resistance. It exists in a layer of reality you cannot see, cannot touch, cannot detect. When the Black Star arrived, it released a pulse of dark matter energy. That pulse passed through your ships harmlessly, but it carried a signal that infected every computer system in your fleet. She smiled slightly. Your ships are intact. Your crews are unharmed. But you cannot fire. You cannot move. You cannot do anything except listen. Elder Voss rose from his throne. His light was blazing now, brighter than it had been in centuries. This is an act of war. You have attacked the Council itself. We have attacked nothing, Taiho replied. We have simply demonstrated a capability. As a warning? A warning? Voss's voice shook with anger. You dare to warn us? We have ruled this galaxy for 100,000 years. We have destroyed civilizations far greater than yours. We show them, Taiho said to Minji. Captain Minji touched a device on her wrist. Through the crystal walls of the chamber, everyone could see the fleet in orbit. And they could see the Black Star moving toward Warden Keth's flagship, the pride of the Council. It was the largest warship in existence, 3 kilometers long. Armed with weapons that could crack planets, a beam of darkness shot from the Black Star. It made no sound. It produced no light. It touched the pride of the council for exactly 1 second, and the ship was gone, not destroyed, not damaged. Gone. 3 kilometers of metal, 3,000 crew members, 1,000 years of technology, erased from existence in the blink of an eye. The chamber was absolutely silent. Elder Voss stared at the empty space where the flagship had been. His light dimmed until he was barely visible. Around him, the other elders sat frozen on their thrones, unable to speak, unable to move. Warden Keth fell to his knees. His flagship, his crew, his friends. They were gone, and there was not even debris to mourn. That was a demonstration, Taiho said into the silence. We did not come here to destroy you. We did not come here for revenge. We came here to deliver a message. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every elder, every representative, every being that had ever laughed at humanity. The old order is over. You will no longer ignore us. You will no longer dismiss us. You will no longer watch our people die while you debate whether we deserve to live. His voice was hard as iron. We are not asking for permission. We are informing you of a change. Speaker Oren rose from his seat. He was the oldest being in the chamber, a creature who had lived for 10,000 cycles and seen empires rise and fall. His voice was soft, tired, and very, very old. What do you want? He asked. Taiho turned to face him. For a moment, something like sadness crossed his face. We want what we always wanted. Respect, equality, the right to exist without fear. He paused. We never wanted to build these weapons. We never wanted to become this. But you gave us no choice. He stepped back, standing beside Minji and Yuna. The Valari Dominion will pay for the colonies they destroyed. The Council will reform its laws to protect all species equally, and humanity will take its place among the stars, not as servants, but as equals. He looked at Elder Voss. These are not requests. These are facts. The only choice you have is whether to accept them peacefully or learn what happens when you refuse. The chamber remained silent. The elders did not argue. The representatives did not protest. Warden Keth remained on his knees, staring at nothing. Commander Hannah, watching from the black star in orbit, felt tears running down her face. She remembered standing in the same chamber asking for help, being laughed at. She remembered the long walk back to her ship, the weight of failure crushing her chest. Now the beings who had laughed were silent, and they would never laugh at humanity again. We will expect your answer in 1 cycle, Taiho said. Until then, consider carefully. The next demonstration will not be a single ship. He turned and walked out of the chamber. Minji and Yuna followed. Behind them, the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in silence, unable to find words for what they had witnessed. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Council of Stars had nothing to say. The weeks that followed the Council confrontation changed everything. Ambassador Rinova Velari Dominion was the first to arrive on Earth. She came alone, without guards, without weapons, without pride. The same blue-skinned woman who had once laughed at human deaths now bowed her head before the gates of the United Earth government. Come to negotiate peace, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, and to offer reparations for the crimes of my people. The negotiations lasted 3 days. When they ended, the Valari Dominion had agreed to pay for the reconstruction of every colony they had destroyed. They agreed to release every human slave in their territory. They agreed to punish the officers responsible for the raids, and they agreed to recognize humanity as a sovereign power that would never be attacked again. Rin signed the treaty with trembling hands. When she looked up at the human diplomats across the table, there was something new in her eyes. Not just fear, respect. Genuine, hard-earned respect. We underestimated you, she said quietly. We will not make that mistake again. On Solara Prime, Elder Voss tried to resist. He gathered the other elders in secret, speaking of alliances and coalitions. Surely, he argued, if all the elder species worked together, they could find a way to defeat the human technology. They had ruled the galaxy for 100,000 years. They could not simply give up their power to creatures who lived less than a century. Speaker Orin listened to his arguments in silence. When Voss finished, the Ancient One rose slowly from his seat. "I have lived for 10,000 cycles," Orin said. "I have seen 17 civilizations rise to power. I have seen 12 of them fall to dust. And do you know what destroyed them?" He looked at Voss with eyes that had witnessed the birth and death of stars. Arrogance, pride, the belief that they could not be challenged. "The humans are barbarians," Voss protested. "They still fight among themselves. They still destroy their own worlds." They built weapons that erase matter from existence," Orin interrupted. "They did this while we laughed at them. They did this while we ignored them. They did this in secret for 60 years, without any of us noticing." He shook his ancient head. "They are not barbarians. They are survivors. And survivors should never be underestimated." He turned to face the other elders. "The old order is dead. We can accept this truth and build something new, or we can cling to our pride and watch everything we have built turn to dust. The choice is ours." One by one, the elders lowered their heads. Even Voss, in the end, could not argue with the wisdom of 10,000 years. The Council of Stars officially dissolved 3 weeks later. In its place, a new governing body was proposed, the Assembly of Worlds. Every species would have an equal voice. Every species would have equal protection. No more tears. No more rankings. No more laughing at those who seemed weak. Humanity was offered a founding seat. Commander Hannah, the same woman who had once been humiliated before the council, was chosen as Earth's first representative. When she took her place among the delegates, she wore the same simple uniform she had worn on that terrible day. But this time, no one laughed. No one whispered. Every eye in the chamber watched her with attention and respect. "We do not seek to rule," Hannah said in her opening address. "We do not seek revenge. We seek only what every species in this galaxy deserves: the right to live in peace, to grow in freedom, and to be judged by our actions rather than our origins." She paused, looking around the chamber. "We hope this assembly will be different from the council that came before. We hope it will be a place of cooperation, not domination, of equality, not hierarchy, of hope, not fear." The delegates applauded. Even the Lumari, even the Valari, even the species that had once mocked humanity's very existence. Something had changed in the galaxy. Something fundamental and irreversible. Dr. Yuna refused all honors and titles. When the governments of Earth tried to give her medals, she politely declined. When universities offered her positions, she said no. Instead, she returned to her small laboratory, this time on a beautiful green world far from Earth, and continued her research. But she did not keep her findings secret anymore. She shared her knowledge with any species that asked peacefully. The Valari sent scientists to learn from her. The Lumari, despite their pride, sent observers. Even species from distant corners of the galaxy made pilgrimages to her laboratory, hoping to understand the secrets of dark matter. "Knowledge should not be a weapon," Yuna told them. "It should be a bridge. I hope that someday every species in the galaxy will understand dark matter as well as we do. And I hope that when that day comes, no one will ever use it for war." Not everyone accepted the new order peacefully. Warden Keth, stripped of his command after the humiliation at Solara Prime, burned with hatred. He had been the most powerful military leader in the galaxy. Now he was nothing. An exile. A joke. He gathered a small group of followers, beings who shared his anger and his desire for revenge. They planned an assassination. During a peace conference on a neutral world, they would strike at Admiral Taiho. Without Taiho, they believed humanity would lose its direction. The Black Fleet would become confused. The old powers could rise again. Lieutenant Jinho was the one who stopped them. He had suspected something was wrong from the moment the conference began. Small things. Guards who looked too nervous. Security systems that had been tampered with. He trusted his instincts and followed the clues. He found Keth in a service corridor, weapon in hand, waiting for Taiho to pass. "It is over," Ginho said, his own weapon raised. "Put it down," Keth turned to face him. The massive creature's eyes were filled with madness and pain. You have taken everything from me. My fleet, my position, my honor. I will not let you take the galaxy as well. We did not take anything, Ginho replied calmly. We simply refuse to let you take more from us. Keth charged. Ginho fired. The dark matter beam was set to its lowest power, just enough to disable, not erase. Keth collapsed to the ground, unconscious but alive. Later, Taiho visited Ginho in his quarters. You could have killed him, the admiral said. Ginho shook his head. We are not them. We do not kill because we can. We do not destroy because it is easy. He looked out the window at the stars. We spent 60 years building weapons of erasure. We should spend the next 60 years proving we do not want to use them. It was the first genuine smile Ginho had seen on the old man's face in years. You would have made a fine admiral. I am a pilot, Ginho replied. That is enough for me. Months passed. The assembly of worlds grew stronger. Old enemies began to talk. Old wounds began to heal. The galaxy was not perfect, would never be perfect, but it was better than it had been. And for the first time in history, humanity walked among the stars as equals, not as servants or victims. Admiral Taiho retired on a quiet evening in spring. He returned to Earth, to a small house overlooking the Pacific Ocean, the same ocean that had hidden the shipyards where the Black Fleet was born. He spent his days reading, gardening, and watching the waves crash against the shore. Captain Minji visited him on a warm afternoon. 6 months after his retirement, she found him sitting on his porch, a cup of tea in his hands, his eyes fixed on the horizon. You look peaceful, she said, sitting beside him. I am tired, he admitted. I have been fighting for so long. It is strange to have nothing left to fight for. There is always something to fight for, Mingi said. But maybe now we can fight with words instead of weapons. With ideas instead of dark matter, Taiho nodded slowly. I never wanted to be a warrior. I wanted to be a teacher when I was young. I wanted to show people the beauty of the universe, he sighed. Instead, I showed them how to erase it. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun sink toward the water. The sky turned gold, then orange, then deep red. Do you think they will ever truly accept us? Minji asked. Taiho considered the question carefully. He thought about Elder Voss, about Warden Keth, about all the beings who had laughed at humanity for 80 years. He thought about the fear in their eyes when the Black Star appeared. He thought about the silence in the council chamber when the flagship vanished. It does not matter if they accept us, he said finally. What matters is that they will never dismiss us again. What matters is that our children will grow up in a galaxy where they are respected. What matters is that the colonies we lost did not burn for nothing. He looked at Minji with eyes that had seen too much war and too much death, but also held a spark of something that had never quite died. Hope. Showed them what we could do, he said quietly. Now we must show them what we choose not to do. That is the real test. That is how we prove we deserve our place among the stars. The sun disappeared beneath the waves. The first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, the Black Fleet still waited in the darkness, silent and patient, ready to protect humanity if the need ever arose again. But on this night, there was only peace. On this night, there was only an old man and his friend, sitting on a porch, watching the universe turn slowly overhead, and knowing that humanity had finally found its place among the endless stars.